Swastiastu. My name is Kadek Dwi Darmaniti. So in this opportunity, I would like to bring a material about critical thinking in avoiding logical fallacies in Indonesia's education. So here we have three main ideas. The first one is what is the logical fallacy, and then education system in Indonesia, and the last is critical thinking in avoiding logical fallacies. So the first one is what is logical fallacy? A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that occurs when invalid argument or irrelevant points are introduced without any evidence to support them. People often resort to logical fallacies when their goal is to persuade others, because fallacies appear to be correct even though they are not. People can be tricked into accepting them. In majority of logical fallacies involve argument, in other words, one or more statements called the premise and a conclusion. The premise is offered in support of the claim being made, which is the conclusion. So here there are two types of mistakes that can occur in arguments. The first one is a factual error in premises, and then the second one is the premises fail to logically support the conclusion. And also here we have two uh, two types of logical fallacy depending on what kind of reasoning error with the argument contains. The first one is informal fallacies, and then the second one is formal fallacies. An informal logical fallacy occurs when there is an error in the content of an argument. Um, it is it is based on an irrelevant or false premise. For example, some philosophers argue that all acts are selfish. Even if you strive to serve others, you are still acting selfishly, because your act is just to satisfy your desire to serve others. At, at first, perhaps it sounds reasonable, but notice how the word selfish changes meaning throughout the argument. When we say a person is selfish, we usually mean that they do not strive to serve others. To say that a person is selfish because they are doing something they want, even when what they want is to help others, is used to the term selfish with a substantially different meaning. And the second one is formological fallacies. It occurs when there is an error in the logical structure of an argument. For example, the premise one say Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and the premise two, the citizen of New York know that Spider-Man saved their city. So the conclusion, the citizen of New York know the Peter Parker saves their city. This argument is invalid because even though Spider-Man is the fact of Peter Parker, the citizens of New York don't necessarily know that Peter Parker saves their city, such as even though both of premises of the argument are true, there is a flaw in argument's logical structure, which renders it invalid. Alright, so next one is education in Indonesia. There are three main point here. The first is era development, and then curriculum development, and then critical thinking. Education as the era develop will experience changes. Yeah, everything's changed by the development of the era. It also affect the education one. Yeah, the education also experiencing changing, of course, to be better. Education in Indonesia also makes adjustment to the current condition and situation. Many have experienced development ranging from student needs, teaching method, and curriculum implementation. And the curriculum is the spirit of an educational institution. So, um, it is for example, in our country here in Indonesia, before we have the curriculum K13, and then right now we also have the curriculum Merdeka, which is independent curriculum. Our Minister of Education, Nadiem Makarim, explained the concept of independent learning in our new curriculum, which is we apply it in the process is really fun, encourage creative and innovative thinking on the part of teachers, and encourage children to respond positively to every learning activity. So Indonesia's education system can be improved through an independent curriculum. Children are educated and honed through independent learning, so they have communication skill, creativity, cooperation, and also critical thinking. Freedom to study is a concept that allows education institutions to encourage students to innovate while still embracing institution and paying attention to the vision and mission of Indonesian education to create quality and competitiveness. So therefore, here the critical thinking is highly emphasized in the student learning process. Next one is critical thinking and avoiding logical fallacies. So here, critical thinking is a type of thinking where you questions, analyze, interpret, evaluate, and make a judgment about what you read, hear, say, or write. Applying critical thinking doesn't mean being negative or focusing on mistake. It means being able to clarify your thinking so that you can decipher an issue or piece of information, interpret it, and use the interpretation to come up with an informed decision or judgment. So in academic context, critical thinking is most often associated with argument. You may be asked to think critically about other people's argument or make your own. This critical thinking ability is indispensable in the face of globalization, which is filled with various kinds of fierce competitions. So here in globalization, we have to be a have a critical thinking, not only the student, maybe all the people also. So start from education. Um, we try to we try to uh, invite the students to critical thinking so they can avoid the logical fallacies. So when students are able to think critically, they will be able to avoid the logical fallacies. Yeah, that's what I mean. There will always be people who spread logical fallacies to trick others, especially students and parents. So therefore, it takes critical thinking to counteract and start using logic well, since school is a wise thing. Yeah. So yeah, this one, the critical thinking one, and the last one, I also have the conclusion. So here, education is very important. When someone gets an education, at least already has more knowledge, insight, and higher socialization from just a small thing. Talking to an educated person will be more comfortable talking to an educated person. Education is not everything, but everything starts with education. Maybe because of the large number of unemployed people with higher education, that makes some parents and students who do not like education will immediately turn toward not wanting to go to school or college. They have the assumption that education is not important. The important thing is to be able to work and earn a lot of money. But that's not the important. That's not the main point. So as the educated people, at least we have this critical thinking. So that's why we can't like affect by logical fallacies.